for Missouri, it's a real first test to see where they're at. For Alabama, it's just the latest ranked game in just a gauntlet of an SEC schedule.
Welcome in to EG and Friends. My name is EG, and each week of the college football season, I'll be sitting down with one of my dear friends in the industry to chat about Alabama football and their matchup that given week. Now, some of these dear friends have an affiliation to the team that Bama is playing. Others do not, but the common thread is that I want to share their magic with you. Now, this week, when I was going to my Rolodex, if you will, I was thinking, who do I know that's a Mizzou grad? I'm from Atlanta, so there's not many people that graduated from the great state of. However, I start thinking about the golden child of the Alabama beat, someone that you guys may be very familiar with. And so it was only right. It had to be the Nick Kelly. Nick, thank you for joining me this morning.
Man, EG, what an introduction. I don't need coffee when I can just hear that. So thanks so much for having me. Great to be with you.
Yeah, you can make it your alarm. I'm sure you can clip this. That's what you can wake up to every morning. That can be your pregame hype speech. I love the introductions in this show. I'm realizing that's something that I really enjoy because I do love sharing the magic of my friends, and it's only right that for this week it had to be you. So you will be traveling. You're leaving Thursday of this week to head up to Missouri?
Yeah, getting there a little bit early because I actually haven't been back in years. So I'm excited to go to Columbia and get a little earlier glimpse of what's going on there, see what's changed, what hasn't. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, so this is one of those games that you, I'm sure, had circled for other personal reasons prior to us getting to this point in the season. What is sticking out to you about this matchup that would, off the top of your head, you're thinking, this is what needs to be circled?
Yeah, it's Ahmad Hardy, frankly. It's that Missouri running game and all the success that they've had, considering, I mean, Ahmad has looked fantastic, but you even just look at the numbers of missed tackles he's forced. You look at the yardage, leads the country. I mean, he's been a phenomenal back, but they've not faced the toughest schedule. It has been the easiest schedule in the SEC to date. I believe 109th so
Yeah.
far, according to ESPN. So not the toughest strength of schedule. So for Missouri, it's a real first test to see where they're at. For Alabama, it's just the latest ranked game in just a gauntlet of an SEC schedule.
Yeah, if Alabama, you come off of Vanderbilt, now you have Missouri, and then you get rewarded with Tennessee at home and then South Carolina. So there's no rest for the weary in this conference. But you made a good point, Nick, about how we don't really know what Missouri is made of quite yet because their strength of schedule is 109th in the college football world. It's not great. And it's one of those things where if you're Bama, you're looking at what they can do, especially when it comes to their rushing attack. What have your thoughts been on the run defense from Alabama so far?
Yeah, it seems to be better in the second half than the first half. I'll say that much. But it has been something that's been a struggle at times. Some big runs, obviously, in the Vanderbilt game. And so, yeah, I can't say that I feel great about it. But at the
Mhm.
same time, there were things I saw in the second half from Alabama and really the first quarter on in that Vanderbilt game that gave me some reason for encouragement or why that they can defend the run better. Because the good news is, I think a lot of the issues are positioning of where guys are, the angles they're taking. These are fixable things. It's not necessarily Alabama just getting beat constantly at the line of scrimmage. Guys can't handle the physicality of the other team. It's just sometimes guys being out of position. So I think that, yeah, if guys can make those adjustments, if coaches can make sure that they have their guys in the right places, make sure they're coaching them up to take the right angles, I think that's going to go a long way toward preventing those runs that are gashing defenses
Yeah.
or gashing the defense and runs that are really just tough to stop. So I think positioning, angles, all those things can be fixed. So that's the good news. But the fact that it hasn't always been fixed is maybe a little concerning.
Absolutely. And we talk to Coach Walmick every Monday. Me and Nick are in the Malmore Athletic Facility. We do have a lot of fun. It's one of those things that I hope we never forget how cool it is, what we get to do. You know what I mean? We're sitting there and we get to talk to Grubb and Walmick and DeBoer, and we get these, answers to the questions that we have. And I feel like the defense has been something since Coach Walmick got to Alabama. The swarm defense model, people aren't fully comfortable with it yet. Would you agree with that? And I would say people, I don't mean players, I mean the fans watching it.
Yeah, and it's hard because Alabama fans were conditioned to some elite defense and to some defenses under Nick Saban. I don't even mean recently. I just mean at the height of the dynasty that gave up virtually nothing, that stopped just about everything it felt like. And unfortunately, playing that kind of defense is getting harder and harder in college football today. Now, you can play strong defense, you can have a good defense, but it's hard to play that just the what was
Lights
it, the
out.
9-6
Mhm.
game in LSU kind of back in 2011. So it's hard to play that kind of defense. It's hard to have a defense that can do that on a day in, day out basis. So when you look at it, feels like Alabama's defense has been gashed or hasn't been as good at times, but I think it's still like 20th in scoring defense. So it's still doing pretty well. It's still, I think, in the top 4 in the SEC, top 3, somewhere around there in scoring defense. So yeah, I get why folks can be frustrated by that run defense, because that's something that I think a lot of old Alabama defenses hung their hats on. But unfortunately, it's just getting tougher and tougher to play that good, tough, gritty defense. And so you do what you can. And I think that they have some dudes, they have some really talented players. Justin Jefferson, I mean,
Mhm.
he's playing at a high level right now. He's taking his game to a high level. You look at in the first game against Florida State, he had some bad plays. And I mean, he missed 36% or so of his tackles, according to Pro Football Focus. And slowly but surely, he's been improving, and he didn't miss any against Vanderbilt. So I think it's getting better. I would say sit back, try to buckle in. It can be a little bumpy at times if you're an Alabama fan with that run defense, but I think there are improvements being made.
I think that's a great way to put it. You kind of just have to rest a little bit and let it come to you. The game is going to play out and it may not look as familiar as you're expecting. And I think it's what's frustrating to fans potentially is that it seems like there's always one really explosive play that Alabama allows with the defense. And you're talking about kind of those misfits. And, you know, when we talk to Coach Walmick, it does seem like it's one of those things where it's not necessarily the fundamentals per se. It's not necessarily the scheme. It's more about making adjustments. And Coach DeBoer was so adamant about this on Monday with us, but he also went on Busting with the Boys, talking about how it's coming down to one guy doing their job better. It's not the entire unit. It's one guy that needs to turn it up a little bit. It's one guy that needs to do his job to a higher caliber. When you hear that, what is your thought process there? Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, I think it's less about scheme and, hey, this scheme can't stop the run. I mean, that's just too broad a generalization. I just see guys being out of position at times, guys taking bad angles. I mean, those are some fundamental things that are fixable, as I mentioned before.
Yeah.
So that's the good news. But the fact that some of those angles have been bad, I mean, we don't need to go back to Florida State. I mean, there have been some bad angles at times taken in run defense by guys in the secondary. That's just a matter of fact. And so I think that they need to improve in that regard. They need to figure out ways to make sure that, yeah, they are taking good angles. They are in the gaps they're supposed to be in, because I really don't think it's a pure scheme issue. Of course, there are things and adjustments you can make, and Alabama has, but I just think it's guys being in the right place and making sure that they're making the plays when they are in position to do so.
You mentioned Justin Jefferson. You had that great stat that you posted on your X account about those missed tackle percentages. Nick always has great stuff, so make sure you're following him. At the end of the show, I'll make sure we plug all of that. But I'm curious for you, when you look at this Mizzou matchup, who's one player on offense, one player on defense that you need to see step up to meet Mizzou where they're at and take the win as they travel to Columbia?
It's a good question. I would say I would say on offense, I think it's going to be really key that they can still run the football, because this is a potential time of possession battle again, because Missouri's quite good at that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pick Jam Miller. I mean, he stepped up last game, so I'm not saying he's got to all of a sudden play better, but I would say he needs to have a good game, because that would help a lot if he's playing well. Because when you have a running game, it just opens up so much in your passing game. You don't have to have an elite running game. I'm not saying that Jam Miller in this offense needs to all of a sudden turn into what Ahmad Hardy has been for Missouri. But if he plays well, I think that's going to go a long way toward them succeeding and Ty Simpson being able to do what he wants to do. So I'll pick Jam Miller on offense.
Yeah.
On defense, it's all about stopping the run. So to me, it comes down to, what can Tim Keenan do? He's had a few games under his belt now. He seemed to be getting better in the second game back. Vanderbilt was his second game. And they need him to be that cog. They need him to, I mean, he's not going to make all the tackles. That's not his job. His job is to take up blockers so that not Jahad Campbell, that was last year, Justin Jefferson, a different J linebacker name, Justin Jefferson and Deontay Lawson and
Mhm.
Nikhai Hill-Green can go and fill those tackles, make those plays. And so I would say Tim Keenan. I would say that, again, he's not a guy that needs to get drastically better. I'm not saying he's been
Right.
bad. It's just, I think he's a guy who, if he steps up, plays well, it's going to go a long way. It's kind of that foundation, that rock of the defense. It just all funnels out from there. every other guy will look better if Tim Keenan is playing well. So give me Tim Keenan as that key player.
Listen, you can't go wrong when you get asked a question about Alabama's defense. If you just say Tim Keenan, usually it works in any regard. Who's leading the defense off the field when he was on the sideline? Tim Keenan. Who's a vocal leader when he's on the field? Tim Keenan. Who is a key player? Tim Keenan. I personally have just loved watching his whole journey process. My favorite quote of his was at SEC Media Days. And I can't remember what I asked him. I think it was like, what does it mean to just play with that script in your uniform? And he sighed and he goes, I'm just so Roll Tide. So good. Like, he is a player that you want to pull for. Another element to Missouri that I think that we kind of need to be looking at is that they're really good at pressuring the quarterback. And Alabama has not necessarily seen much of that since FSU. That was the last time that we saw Ty Simpson look rattled. Georgia, I think that people had the expectation that that might be an issue when they traveled to Athens, but it really wasn't. What are you seeing in that regard from Missouri's offense or defensive line?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Georgia because one of Missouri's top pass rushers, I believe he leads them in sacks, is Damon Wilson. He's a guy who transferred from Georgia, and he probably would have been the Bulldogs' top pass rusher if he was still there. So Missouri has him. They also have Zion Young, another guy to watch for. So, yeah, there are guys who can get after the quarterback. So I mentioned Jam Miller in the running game, but frankly, Jam Miller is a pass protector. One of the things he's really good at is going to need to play well as well because, yeah, they're going to have guys coming after Ty. And on the road, Missouri's not the toughest road environment. I think it's about 60,000, not the biggest or toughest. It's not Death Valley. It's not Neyland. So I'm not saying it's going to be that environment, but it's a road game. People are going to be up for it because Alabama's on the road. And, yeah, it's going to be loud. So you need to make sure that those guys can't just pin their ears back. And you need to make sure to protect Ty Simpson. And I think that'll go a long way toward the offense succeeding because, yeah, Missouri's got some guys up front.
Okay, Nick, now it is time for the best advice that you have been given in this industry. I'm really excited to hear this. Last week we had Josh Pate on, and I love what he had to say. Unfortunately, Nick did text me, I guess it was last Friday, and said, man, EG, I really have to follow Pate. I said, no. These were pre-planned. That you were not a last-minute business decision. This was very intentional, and as I say, second is the best. Sorry, Pate. With that being said, what has been your best advice you've been given in this industry?
To me, it's essentially say yes, even if you don't feel ready completely, because you're never going to feel completely ready for an opportunity, but you just kind of have to say yes and figure it out along the way. I know for me, back when I was 20 years old, sitting in a class at Mizzou, history of American journalism, when I got a message from the sports editor in Tampa asking me for the Tampa Bay Times, asking me if I would want to drop out that semester and come cover the Tampa Bay Lightning for them. Well, I thought he was kidding, but within a week, I'd packed up my stuff, moved my classes online, and I was on my way to Tampa to be essentially an NHL beat writer at age 20. I couldn't even drink legally yet. So it was a kind of a leap. And I didn't know what I was doing. I'd covered little NHL in Minnesota for some internships, but I'd never done it full time as a beat writer. And they gave me the opportunity. And sometimes I wonder, like, man, were they crazy doing that? But I said yes and jumped in, even though I didn't feel fully ready. And it turned out to be a great experience. And I think that my ability to pull that off, frankly, has helped me in other stops and has led me to where I am today. So, yeah, I mean, say yes. You're never going to feel completely ready and obviously prepare as much as you can, but say yes, even if you don't quite feel ready, and you'll figure it out along the way.
That's such a great answer. I love that because so much of what we do in this industry is you don't have a lot of forewarning on it. You're just thrown into the fire. And I know that we could share stories. We could do a whole episode just on our experiences at Alabama, covering this team, covering the, transition to Kalen DeBoer, Nick Saban's retirement, that first season with DeBoer, and now where we're at today. But the commonality is you never really know when something is going to happen. You never really know when that opportunity is going to arise. And my last question for you, Nick, when you think about your time spent at Alabama so far and being on this beat, when you look back in 5, 10, 20 years, what is a moment that you're really going to kind of hang your hat on so far?
Yeah, that's a good question. Do you mean in terms of like a memorable moment or in terms of something that
Anything that comes to mind. I'm not going to give you too much because I want to see the
Okay.
authentic answer here.
Yeah, I would say I just think being around Nick Saban is something that I don't think I'll ever cover someone like him again just because Nick Saban's a one-on-one. So I would say I'm never gonna forget I was fortunate to be able to co-host Hey Coach a couple times, and I think sitting next to him for that long, for an hour, it was just fascinating seeing how he handled that show. Like, he would have notes in front of him for points he wanted to make. His leg would be, twitching at times because he was always ready to go, always ready to keep moving things along. So being in his presence, just frankly, it was very surreal. Not in a fanboy kind of way, but just more of like this is Nick Saban, who has this aura about him, who has a certain way of doing things, is one-on-one. So I think that frankly I won't forget for a long time.
Mhm. All right, Nick. Well, thank you for joining us. It is always a pleasure to get you on EG and Friends. So thank you.
Hey, it was an honor to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
Week number 2 of EG and Friends is in the books. That one was a fun one. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. Thank you again to Nick for joining us. And I hope that you guys were able to see a little bit of his magic and why I'm really enjoying bringing you guys these people that are near and dear to my heart. So with that being said, I want to make sure that you're following my friends as well. So on X, he's at _Nick Kelly. And then on Instagram, he's at nick.a.kelly. He's a great follow and a great person to add to your list for Alabama football. I cannot thank him enough. And it's been so much fun, like I said, just to cover Alabama football with him because he's so respected just as a journalist and who he is as a person. So all that to say, we'll be back next week for EG and Friends. So until then, enjoy your weekend of college football.